Welcome back to the thrilling crime-solving journey of Xu Qi'an in the Nightwatcher. Chapter 18. A Stroll Through the Market. The key to poetry, Xu Qi'an mused, lay in mastering the tones and rhythms. As long as that fundamental principle held true, even here in another world, the poems he'd memorized during his school days, products of 9 years of compulsory education, might still come in handy. Xu Qi'an gave him a sidelong glance, chin raised smugly. A bird in the sky, a worm on the ground. The bird swoops down, the worm's fate comes round. Peeved? Xu Lingyue stifled a laugh behind her hand. But the moment Xu Qi'an shot her a sharp look, she turned away, cheeks flushed red. Too cruel, Xu Qi'an thought bitterly. I kind of want to punch him. His face stiffened with embarrassment. That poem, if you could call it that, was something the former owner of this body had written when he was 10. Back then, their scholarly grandfather had tested the 3 Xu siblings on their poetic abilities. The result? This monstrous piece was born. At the time, Xu Lingyan hadn't even been hatched, just a tadpole swimming in the womb. Their aunt let out a derisive chuckle. Ning Yan, I don't mean to belittle you, but honestly, the only one who ever cracked open a book in this family is you. The rest your uncle included write like chickens scratching dirt. She smirked, her delicate eyes rolling dramatically. Can't even write properly, and you're all trying to compose poetry. Xu Pingzi, a little embarrassed, cleared his throat. Ning Yan, let's leave the poetry to the scholars. Shall we? It's our day off, why don't you come help your uncle fix the roof? The message was clear. Kid, don't embarrass yourself. You're making me look bad in front of my wife. Miles of golden sun brushed with cloud. Xu Qi'an murmured, his voice calm and distant. Aunt glanced his way but said nothing, spooning up her porridge. Xu Pingzi just wiped the grease off little Xu Lingyan's mouth, unaware of the shift in the room. Xu Qi'an frowned slightly. It was only one line, but it had weight. Rhythm. Clarity. For someone like Xu Qi'an to compose such a tight, polished line, well, that was unexpected. Wild geese ride the north wind, snow falling fast. Xu Qi'an blinked. The image bloomed in his mind. Snow-laden skies. A flock of geese soaring against the bitter wind. Xu Lingyue looked up, eyes wide with wonder, staring at her cousin as if seeing him for the first time. But Xu Qi'an only lowered his head and kept eating. Where's the next line? Come on. The next line? Xu Qi'an blurted, his voice laced with urgency. It was like hearing a storyteller at the tea house reach the climax of a tale, and then slam his ruler down with a grin. To know what happens next, come back tomorrow. Infuriating. I don't know how to write poetry, Xu Qi'an said with a faint smile, glancing sideways at his aunt. He was just feeling generous today. She happened to look unusually elegant this morning. That's all. No hidden meaning. His aunt gaped. That poem was good. It paints a vivid scene, Xu Lingyue said softly. She hadn't read much, but even she could sense the weight in those opening lines. Xu Pingzi looked between his children, stunned. Then his gaze fell on Xu Qi'an, a mix of surprise and growing pride in his eyes. Do not grieve for lack of kindred spirit, for all the world shall know your name. Xu Qi'an recited the final couplet between bites of fried dough. Clatter! Xu Qi'an dropped his chopsticks. He whispered the lines to himself, caught in the image they conjured, drawn deeper with every syllable. Goosebumps rippled across Xu Lingyu's arms. She shivered. Even Xu Pingzi, the grizzled old soldier, swore under his breath. Damn, just listening to that makes my hair stand on end. His wife didn't want to admit it, but she nodded. That was the power of poetry. Not just rules or rhythm, but a visceral, soul-stirring feeling. You didn't need to know meter to feel something when a verse struck true. Xu Qi'an remembered how that had once hit him too. Back in his old world, reading a few classic lines in a dusty textbook and being floored by their weight. Miles of golden sun brushed with cloud. Wild geese ride the north wind. Snow falling fast. Do not grieve for lack of kindred spirit. For all the world shall know your name. Xu Erlang couldn't help repeating it aloud. His cheeks flushed with excitement. The delicate lines of his scholarly face flushed. Almost radiant. Now that's a poem. He might not have been a true student of poetry. But any scholar worth his salt knew the thrill of trading verses over wine and the undeniable joy of a beautiful line well spoken. When did you learn to write poetry? He asked, eyes darting between awe and suspicion. When did I ever say I couldn't? Xu Qi'an replied with a lazy grin. Just because I scribbled trash when I was 10 doesn't mean I haven't improved. I've always known how, just never felt the need to show it. So you're the true scholar of our Xu family. Uncle Xu grinned ear to ear, clapping his hands in delight. If I'd known that earlier, I'd have sent you to the academy and let Su Ju learn martial arts instead. Aunt opened her mouth to protest, but found no words. No way, Xu Qi'an thought to himself. The former, him, was a hopeless case, better off laying bricks than studying Confucian classics. And Xu Erlang, he wasn't cut out for martial arts either. The boy was all skin and bones. How was he supposed to build physical strength? But let's be clear, Uncle Xu added, turning serious. That poem belongs to Ning Yan. Don't you go passing it off as your own. That's not what a real scholar does. I know, father, Xu Erlang replied. I'll say it's from my brother. I just want to borrow it for a bit. And now I've created a problem for myself, Xu Qi'an thought, but nodded. Go on then. Let it shine. That's what scholars did, after all shined bright in front of others. This poem wasn't for fame. Xu Qi'an had intended for Xu Erlang to use it in making connections. He didn't care whose name was attached to it. He had no intention of living as a Confucian scholar. Poetry meant little to his path now. That's why he hadn't bothered showing it off before. He lived among constables and warriors. Spouting poetry to that crowd was like teaching pigs to sing. He was better off teaching them dirty songs. What's the title of the poem? Xu Erlang asked. Crap, Xu Qi'an froze. I made it in the heat of the moment. No title yet. You name it. Ellipsis. After breakfast, Xu Erlang led his father's beloved steed from the backyard and hurried off. In the courtyard, uncle and nephew exchanged blows, sparring with wooden sticks. Not bad. You've made real progress, Uncle Xu said, wiping sweat from his brow with a towel handed over by a servant. But if you want to go further, you'll have to break into the Qi refinement stage. And for that, you need to awaken your spiritual sense, open your heaven gate. He leaned on his stick. Only a master at the spirit refinement realm can open it for you. Otherwise, you'll be stuck where you are for life. Spirit refinement, 7th realm in the path of martial cultivation. What are you trying to say, Uncle? Xu Qi'an asked, dabbing sweat from his temples. I fought through the Shanghai campaign and earned enough merit to have a general open my heaven gate, Uncle Xu said, eyes distant. When I returned home the next year, Erlang was born. He sighed. But you're in peacetime. No war, no way to earn military merit. So how do you advance? Without Qi refinement, how will you ever marry? Ning Yan, I'm getting older. My only wish is to see you start a family. That way, I won't feel like I failed your father. Xu Qi'an gave a vague answer. One step at a time. There was another way to advance money. The right medicine, the right master. Everything had a price. Because martial strength could threaten imperial control. The court restricted martial advancement strictly. No spirit refinement expert was allowed to open heaven gates without official approval. Even for their own children, they had to report to the authorities. But this was the real world. And in this world, corruption ran deep. The bureaucracy of Da Feng was a mess. Greedy officials, decaying order law was one thing, reality another. Many spirit refinement masters sold their services in the black market. And that's why Xu Qi'an needed silver. Lots of it. He didn't plan to stay stuck in the body refinement realm forever. What use was a heaven gate if it stayed sealed shut? Just then, his aunt called out under the eaves, flanked by his two little cousins. "Husband, it's such a lovely day. Take Lingyue and Lingyan out for a walk." Chapter 19. A farewell in verse. Outside the capital, at a quiet pavilion known as Sheepfield Rest, several ornate carriages stood parked nearby, their lacquered surfaces gleaming faintly under the pale winter sun. The wind carried a biting chill, sweeping over the barren hills that rolled endlessly toward the horizon. In the distance, the sunrise bled faint warmth into the sky, but it did little to soften the edge of the early winter cold. Today marked the return to office of a man long absent from the political stage, Xu Qi'an, scholar of the Cloud Deer Academy. For the academy, which had been slowly losing its influence in court, this was a moment of triumph. Teachers applauded. Students buzzed with excitement. Hope stirred in every heart perhaps. At last, the age of resurgence was coming. Inside the pavilion, 3 elderly men sat facing each other over steaming cups of tea. One wore deep purple robes, his temples silver with age. He was the guest of honor today. His name was Yang Gong, courtesy name Ziqin, widely known as Scholar Xu Qi'an. Top scorer in the imperial examination during the 14th year of Yuanjing's reign. He had returned to the Cloud Deer Academy the following year to teach and pursue scholarly research. Over the next 2 decades, he mentored a generation of students who would go on to shape the empire's future. His fame as a Confucian master was unmatched. Once, his path had pointed straight toward the Grand Chancellor's seat. But at the height of his influence, he had abruptly withdrawn from court life. No one could agree on why. Some said he had offended the emperor. Others claimed he'd been outmaneuvered by a rival official. Whatever the truth, 22 years had passed. And now, he was returning to service as the regional director of Qingzhou, a real position of power. The other 2 men at the table were no less distinguished. Beyond their positions at the Cloud Deer Academy, their reputations echoed across the empire. The man in gray, with a pointed beard and calm demeanor, was Li Mobai, once hailed as the finest Go player in the realm. 5 years ago, he had lost 3 straight games to the legendary Wei Yuan. Enraged, he shattered his board and vowed never to play again. The man in ocean blue robes was Zhang Shen, a military theorist whose 6 drafts of warfare had become required reading for all military officers in the Great Feng Empire. Only Wei Yuan could rival him in matters of strategy. Outside the pavilion, a cluster of promising students had gathered to see Xu Qi'an off. Xu Erlang Xu Tan Nian stood among them. "Master Ziyang is finally stepping down from the mountain," someone whispered beside him, a fellow student. "If he notices you, your path to an official post could be smooth as glass." "Hey, Tu Ju, did you finish your poem?" "My cousin gave me half a poem," Xu Erlang replied coolly, eyes fixed on the pavilion. 7-character verse, just 2 stanzas. That's all he bothered with. Tu Ju snorted. "That's enough, right?" "You're too idealistic." Tan Nian. 7-character verse followed a strict form. 8 lines total, each with 7 characters. Every 2 lines made a couplet. Xu Qi'an had only given him 2 couplets, half a poem. When Xu Erlang pressed him for the rest, his cousin had dodged the question. changing the subject with a sheepish grin. It's not about idealism, Erlang muttered. Just doesn't feel right. But he's not wrong, Ju replied, lowering his voice. In this world, the court is a sea of sharks. You need to flatter, maneuver, adapt. It's survival. Exactly. Another student chimed in. Corruption runs deep. Officials conspire and crush the common folk. Natural disasters follow. If we want to change anything, we have to play the game smart. Ju nodded sagely, then glanced at Xu Erlang. You always say poetry's a minor art. But think who remembers essays from 30 years ago? Poetry lasts. Verse is immortality. Poetry, a minor art, it couldn't rule a nation or feed the people. It was frill and flair. Xu Erlang had argued this more than once. But today, standing here, holding a half-finished poem meant to curry favor from an old scholar, he kept those words to himself. Ju blinked at him in surprise. Wait, you're not arguing. Inside the pavilion, Li Mobai exhaled with a soft laugh. Ziyang, if you'd had even half the cunning these young men have, you might not have wasted 20 years. Xu Ziyang smiled faintly. That's not quite fair. Zhang Shen, sipping tea, chuckled. Maybe not wasted, maybe you were laying the groundwork for your great work. Establishing fate. Xu Ziyang let out a long breath. Or maybe I was just pushed out of the court like an old pawn. No shame in that. Those bastards from the State Academy have been working against us from the start. They'll never let Cloud Deer rise again. Bah! Bootlickers and schemers, the lot of them. It's only been 2 centuries. And look how far the empire's fallen. The bitterness wasn't just political. It ran deep into history. Confucianism began with the sage. The Cloud Deer Academy had been founded by his first disciple, and for generations it was the heart of orthodox learning. But 200 years ago, during a bitter struggle for the throne, the reigning emperor had turned against them. Worse, a teacher from the academy whom they now called the traitor seized the opportunity to found a rival school. His doctrine, preserve heaven's principle, destroy human desire, won the emperor's favor. With imperial support, he established the State Academy and became a Grandmaster. From that day, the Cloud Deer Academy's influence waned. The State Academy took over the education of officials. And for 200 years, a debate raged who were the true heirs of the sage. Xu Ziyang's voice deepened. I'm going to Qingzhou to carve a foothold for Cloud Deer in court again. But one man can't revive an era alone. We need unity, and more than that, we need new blood. Li Mobai and Zhang Shen exchanged knowing looks and turned to the students waiting outside. Anyone feel bold enough to recite a farewell poem for Scholar Ziyang? Li called. Xu Ziyang reached into his sleeve and withdrew a purple jade pendant, its surface glowing with a soft inner light. Best poem earns this, he said. The student's eyes lit up. A master scholar's personal jade pendant was no trinket, it carried traces of his spiritual insight. Refined over decades of study. Possessing it could bring unexpected enlightenment. And more importantly, the gesture itself was meaningful. It meant, you have caught my eye. You are now my student. I will try, said a student in blue scholar's robes. He stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Li Mobai smiled. This is Chu Tuji, one of my better students. He's got some talent. Xu Ziyang nodded with a gentle smile. Chu Tuji's voice rang clear as he recited his verse. By the end, Ziyang's smile had deepened. He was clearly pleased. Not bad at all, Zhang Shen said with rare praise. But the poems that followed couldn't match the first. They were competent, maybe, but uninspired. Hastily stitched together. Li Mobai sighed. Ever since the State Academy codified the sages' writings and took that heaven over desire path, students everywhere have buried themselves in dry scripture. They've forgotten how to feel their words. No wonder poetry has grown so stiff, so fragmented. It's all head, no heart. The pain in his voice was real. This was the true reason Confucianism had declined in recent generations. 200 years ago, the academy had been lively, daring, even playful. Confucian scholars could praise the wisdom of the Buddhists, the insight of the Taoists, the strange arts of mystics, even admire the brute honesty of martial cultivators, though they might draw the line at monsters and demons. But now, it was all calcified, lifeless. And those gathered here, once giants in their fields, could only watch and wonder, could anyone light the flame again?
Thanks for listening till the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.